Lemon Amiga presents a Playguide video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
It lurked at galactic centre like an obscene worm gnawing at the heart of a rose, a cancerous life form of planetary dimensions that fed on the very stuff of space-time, a parody of procreation. It was life gone mad. It was Onkablock, the ruling elite of the galaxy. The instrumentality was conceived to deal with the emergency. The gibbering chaos of Onkablock had to be destroyed at all costs before it absorbed the peaceful domicile worlds of the galactic arms, and so Amnios was created as the instrumentality struggled to come to terms with this unknowable evil. Plunging out of hyperspace to confront this magnificent entity, the magnitude of the task becomes apparent. A seething amalgam of organs and limbs. Well, that's enough of that. Let's just click the mouse button or press the fire button and continue with this game. This, unfortunately for me, is Amnios. This was developed by Flying Chicken and published by Psygnosis in 1991. On that title, we get a funky background and also the credits of this game: Peter Leon and Paul Freewin. And Peter Leon was, of course, famous for 20 different games on the Amiga. One of those was the Killing Game Show and also Eliminator. And Paul Freewin also coded Tetra Quest for Microdeal in 1988. Great music that you can hear was created by Tim Wright, of course. Tim and Lee Wright. And the code, well, Wiley in this case is supposed to be a guy that we've never heard of, but I reckon that that's supposed to be the main guy that was involved with this, Peter Leon. So I'm not quite sure, but we can also press the D key to see some options, or we can check out some more of this music. Refine keys on the keyboard or choose to enter a password as well, but we don't need to do that right now because we don't have any passwords. So, well, this is my first time virtually of playing this game. I had a very quick warm-up and that didn't get very far. So are you ready? Let's press fire and let's check this game out. In Amnios, or perhaps Amnios, our objective is to defeat Omniblock, which is an omnipresent life form that's taken over 10 worlds. And so this is the first world of the 9 that we'll be looking at in this review. This game was created in 1991 by Psygnosis, and before that time Psygnosis on the Amiga were known for mouse click games where you used a mouse a lot, and you might remember some of those. And of course that led to the Lemmings project where you use a mouse to guide things around the screen. And so it's fair to say that Psygnosis, that everybody knew as Psygnosis back in the day, were mostly known for mouse-driven games until maybe Menace came along, a DMA design game, and that led to blood money and also anarchy and things like that, which used a controller. And DMA design moved on to, of course, Grand Theft Auto, and I think this was produced by Homebrew, batch of guys. I'm not quite sure if they were English or French, but I think this guy was a Homebrew developer that created all of these games and sold his games to different publishers, and this guy sold his games to Houston and things like that. But this was a Psygnosis release, and you can see ultra smooth 360-degree view as we look at this top-down shooter. Yes, if we move that around quickly enough, we can see in all directions, and you can see that the screen has changed colour at the moment. That must mean that we have reached the end of the level, and in this case, of course, as soon as you get to the end of the level, you'll find an end of level guardian, and so there are 10 end of level guardians to get through. Once you've done that, you've cleared that planet. You might notice we picked up the rear shot, and that's very helpful for the Guardian, and also these worms that you can see. Well done, level completed, and it also gives us a password as well, and then I think if we press fire we can continue. Actually fly around in a spaceship owned apparently by the Sapiens, maybe Homo sapiens, and you can see on the BIOS scanner in the bottom corner we are flashing all different colours, and we are in the centre of that scanner. So if you want to find us anywhere on the map, that's where we are, bang in the centre, and just like a ZX Spectrum game, we'll be colour cycling all the way through those colours. This main enemy creature, Oncoblock, is a very fierce creature indeed. It is split up into 4 parts, and the eyes, the brain, the heart and the arteries, and the 4 parts are spread around on every map. And so you can complete every map by killing all those 4 main areas which are around on the planet surface, and you can see various enemies are there to attack us. That's the antibodies. Those guys will drift around and try to shoot us and try to kill us, and some of those are bio beings, which is the immune system of Oncoblock. Those are in orange on the radar, and so if you see any orange dots, that's basically the enemy. And some of the worms that fly around as well, avoid the worms, I think they also appear in orange. Also release a bio weapon. I think by pressing the enter key we can swap between all the different weapons that we've got, and we can pick up different bombs as well, and those apparently will kill different parts of this enemy. But we'll move on to that a bit later on. You can see on this second world it's green, and there is a lot going on. This is not a simple block map. This is being tiled very generously indeed, and I'm not quite sure how big this map is, but you can loop it around, and eventually if you go directly off the bottom you will eventually go off the top, and you can loop around just like that. See, we've picked up the diagonal, or at least the side shot, and the side shot means that we can aim if we rotate very quickly on some kind of diagonal so we can get that enemy, and that's superb. It means we can keep that arm's distance, and at this stage it doesn't take that much to kill those enemies. In fact, one thing I would like to point out at this game, even at this early stage, is the game is way too easy. See the Sapien ship in the middle, but also on the side as well, and you can see that takes damage as we get hit. And the ship on the side is of course representing our shield power, and shield power you can see is taking a big hit at the moment, and so you have one shield, which is the ship shield, and when that depletes you will see a ghosted image of our craft. And then the secondary shield is actually a ship armour, and when that goes, the ghosted image will start to disappear, and once that disappears, then that's a life over. We can get some health back by chasing after these ships, and you can see by hovering over them, or at least trying to, we can get some ship shield back, and we can get all that energy back if we can hover over those pads. And those pads, known as father ships in this game, no, not mother ships, father ships, those are our home base, and those are very important in the game. You can see those are highlighted in yellow on the bio scanner, and so if you want to find any home ships and get your health back, there you go, you'll have to hover over them, and you'll have to return to those as well. If you get some DNA, you can see that we found some DNA, and we'll have to wait for that to hatch. There it goes, and then collect that hatched DNA, and that will give us some kind of a power-up. And you can see that our energy is now full by trying to collect that hatched DNA, which will hang around there, and you can see power-up. That means that we've got some more firepower, and you can collect different colours of DNA on all of the planet's surfaces, and they will do various things. The end of level boss isn't the catastrophe that you might remember, but it's a very cool colour scheme where the level fades to a different colour. And as I say, this game is way too easy, so it won't be any problem for the player to breeze through these levels at top speed. And you can see that we've now got an upgraded forward and rear shot, which should mean that these levels are even easier. Right, too many good 360-degree shooters on the Amiga, and if you remember, we saw the Jeff Minter game, which was one of those, and there are a few of these knocking around, but there aren't a massive list, and I didn't manage to find too many of them, but I really do love this because it gives it an open world atmosphere, and even though the graphics might seem mind-blowing at first, you don't quite know what things are, you can usually pick out the main properties of the level. The ground-based items are usually in a big block. You can see just to the north there is a big block of something that looks like an eyeball or something, and sometimes the arteries open up like that. So all you can do is destroy them, and as you destroy them they will disappear, or at least a marker will disappear in the top right corner. You can see there is some arteries remaining, some brain remaining, and some eyeball remaining, but you can also see that the heart has been completely wiped out. We destroyed the heart by destroying the blocks on the floor, and that means if we destroy the heart, that means that the enemies will be slower to build up, and that means if there are less enemies on the level, that means that they will lose heart basically, and they won't be attacking us as much as they could have done. So that means that we can maintain all our objectives and get through to the end of the level, which in this case appears very quickly. As we start a brand new level, you can see all of the objectives are renewed: the heart, the arteries, the brain and the eyeball in the top corner, and so we'll have to go for those again. And in order to complete any of the surfaces, all we have to do is to destroy those by a given amount, and at least destroying one completely, and half of the others will usually complete any of the levels. So you can go around gung-ho and blowing everything up, and that will eventually mean that the level will auto-complete itself and give you the end of level 1. See, the levels are very colourful, and on a stock Amiga you could get 16 colours out of this, and this really does look like a 32 colour game, so I'm not quite sure how they made this look like a Mega Drive classic. And of course this is bread and butter for a Sega Mega Drive or a Super Nintendo, but really didn't get too many of these multicolour games until after 1990, and before that it really was a poor show in terms of colours on the Amiga, and even great games like Mercs and things like that were hampered by a 16 colour palette. See various inhabitants on the planet, and the wasps will be in light green. On the radar you can see, and the wasps will home in. There is no wasps on the radar at the moment. You can see some ordinary green things on the radar. Those are actually the biopods, and the biopods of course contain DNA, and DNA is important because that's how we get the weapon upgrades, and by destroying that level we can get eventually enough of that destroyed to kill it. And in the meantime you can see we've just rescued a guy from the surface. Yes, another way to complete each level is to rescue enough guys from the surface, and those guys are survivors, and those are known as humanoids in the manual. Those will appear as pink dots on the scanner, so all you need to do is aim towards those pink dots, and unfortunately they are protected, and they're protected by Snatchers. So if you see anything with wings flying around, like a winged gremlin with wings, those are called Snatchers, and what they will do, they will pick up the humanoids, and once they have picked them up, the Snatchers are indestructible, so all you can do is to wait for them to put them down again. Having done so, they will hang around the humanoids and protect them, and because they are indestructible, it means that we'll have to somehow get around them if we want to pick up the humanoids. So what I like to do is to fly around in a circle wildly. You can see we are full of Snatchers here, and half of the lungs and the heart and the energy has already gone, so that means yet again we're back to the boss. So this game almost doesn't have time to get boring, because as soon as you think you've got anywhere in the level, it will auto complete, and it will give us a bonus I think at the end for the number of humanoids that we've managed to have remaining. And in this case we rescued 5 humanoids, it said. So if we look for the pink dots straight away, you'll find white dots on the radar protecting them. We'll have to dive in to get those humanoids before the white dots attack us, and sometimes we can fool the white dots. They will follow us and chase after us. And so the things with wings, you can lure them away from the humanoids, collect enough humanoids, and that means we can get through the level. Unfortunately, with all these bio beings and wasps and all these things trying to get us because they are antibodies, we will have to destroy a number of them, otherwise we'll get damaged. The point of getting damaged is we'll have to fly all the way to the yellow markers, which are our father ships. And you can see there is an extra father ship on every level. So on level 1 there is 1, on level 2 there is 2, and so on. So by the time we get to maybe level 5 or 6, there's 5 or 6 on the level, so there are no shortage of those. Unfortunately, the father ships do fly around semi-randomly, so if they are on a trajectory you can expect that to change at any given point, so you can't just fly directly over them and expect to get a free health top up. And it's important to get over the father ships, of course, because if you find a biopod, one of those DNA pods that contains DNA, you'll have to drop that off at a father ship to hatch, and so you'll have to track one of those down. At the moment I'm flying around looking at those humans and I can't see much, but look at that blue DNA. Let's just shoot that out, and let's go south, all the way south, and drop that off at a father ship. You can see the humans that we've dropped off will remain there forever. So the DNA there, you can see it has landed on the pad, and now that will be teleported to the labs on the main ship, and once it's been converted, there you go, we can now pick it up. And so let's see what it is. It's not easy to pick that thing up, and it materializes as a power-up. So the blue DNA pods are always power-ups, and it's vital to get them on every single level. It's one of those things that I like to do. Oh, grab that human there if we can. Oh, it's been grabbed by a snatcher, that's always a possibility. But yes, the first thing that I like to do is to grab a blue DNA pod and upgrade the ship. That means that we've just got enough firepower to survive. Unfortunately, those lives really do take a beating, and we appear to be on 6 lives at the moment, but it doesn't take much to wipe out the life energy. And you can see a human there that we've collected, that's just dropped that off, and so we should get an announcement or some kind of jingle when that happens, and everyone dropped off is great. You can see we're trying to drop them off left, right and centre now. They will fly behind us like followers, like Captain Planet. There we go, and as soon as we touch that pad we can get them there, but trying to get some energy back, trying to get full health at the moment is not easy as you go through the game, and sometimes it's a case of following these things around, hoping wildly that we will get that health back. At this stage you might think that everything is futile with only half of our body shield left, with the main ship shield completely depleted, but you might notice that half of the enemy organs have been depleted in the top corner, which means as soon as I get this energy back, the screen will turn red and it will be the end of level boss time, if I don't stop running into these snatchers, that is. And let's hope and pray that we get 2 of those pads together. And yes, there is inertia on the ship, so you'll have to hover over them, and hovering over them at this stage isn't easy. Let's go towards these 3, and let's hope that one of these 3 will give us what we need. And so that's our ship shield restored, and our outer shield is halfway restored. And you can see shooting a few of those animals, well, a worm really helps, but that's destroyed our health yet again. So some of these levels are a matter of following the pads around. Following the pads in this game should mean that we're safe, and now that we've got at least half the energy back, we're safe to go for the end of level boss. In the bonus area we really don't get attacked by much apart from the enemy's firepower, And you can see that's wiped us out, but we've still managed to do it with that sliver of energy remaining. The game is generous with lives. We're now on 7, and perhaps you get an extra free life with every extra level. But let's move on. I'm not quite sure if the WHD load version I'm playing at the moment actually pauses between levels and gives us a chance to write down that password. I have a sneaking feeling it doesn't, and that means that the game is really hard, but all of the passwords are of course on that Lemon Amiga website. Let's get some blue DNA hatched, and you know what that means? More firepower! So let's wait for that and avoid the worms, and look at that, no energy remaining, but we've grabbed that power up. That's fantastic. That means that all we've got to do is to destroy everything else. Taking another look at the radar, the flashing thing is us, the pink dots are the humanoids, the yellow ones are the father ships, the orange ones are the bio beings or the antibodies, the green dots are the biopods, and the white dots are the Snatchers. Lastly, the light green dots are the wasps, and that is completely wrong in the manual, so that's why I'm going over all of those again. It's a shame that Psygnosis can't even get the name right in some of these games, got the colours completely wrong in the Amiga manual. See, we've been given a shield, and 20 seconds of shield won't last forever, and we can pick up that shield by getting a green DNA, and that 20 seconds is enough usually to destroy most of the alien. You see, most of the heart is gone, most of the brain, so again, it's time ticking down now. I'm looking for those yellow pads again. Here we are, and let's get that energy back yet again before the end of level boss. So I'm racing against time already, even though there is no time limit. And so it's the art of gathering hay while that sun shines in this game, before it automatically seems to time out and throw us directly into that boss. So no level lasts more than 5 minutes, I don't think, as long as you're shooting things. And this isn't with autos fire, this is me blasting away at that joystick. That's Bio-Smart. That's a Bio-Smart bomb, and that's the red coil of DNA that we can pick up. If we get that when that is highlighted, take that back, we'll get a smart bomb, and you'd expect that that's a massive effect on the screen, but really that's a disappointment. It doesn't do much. So I'd avoid the red ones, and there are orange ones as well, which it says are yellow in the map. And the orange ones, if you take those to a pad and hatch them out, there will be a V-bomb. And V-bombs come in 4 flavours. There's the heart attack V-bomb, the ice soccer V-bomb, the brain bomb, and also the vengeance bomb. Vengeance for the antibodies, and so vengeance is very tenuous indeed, but you can get them. And so if you fly over those particular parts of the life force, then you can destroy them with those particular bombs. Of course, I don't bother with the orange ones, and I don't bother with the red ones either. The green ones are handy if you want to knock out a big part of the enemy. You can see we've destroyed a huge part of the brain. There's only a sliver of the heart left, so surely once you get rid of 2 in this case, and half of the others, that should mean level over. We can also pick up some humanoids as well, but we don't really need to do that. We've got enough health. You can see, disappointingly, if we crash into the end of level boss, that's a life over straight away. And when they appear like that, they really can crash into us. And it's a shame that we don't have massive firepower like Project X and all those other massive shooters. but we can see that we do have enough firepower to maintain our shots on those enemies. And so even though it's ordered chaos at the beginning, you really don't want to be moving over big blocks, and you really want to be avoiding all the small critters floating around. You can do a tour of duty to get rid of all them, and that just means that hopefully got a human being there. Let's grab another one. But hopefully by touring the duty you can get rid of most of the things on that level. Amnios is, I think, an Amiga exclusive title, and certainly this wasn't ported to a myriad of machines like Lemmings or Shadow of the Beast. And this was making use of hardware tricks to get this scrolling, and you can see animations in the background and everything moves, and we are the only thing that stays put in the very centre of the screen, and all that happens is our ship will rotate on the spot. And with that inertia, it's just enough to slow down in time for what we really need, and when we hover over things, that means we can drop things off and wait for things to hatch and get several plans together, or wing it and see what happens. But at this stage in the game, this is only the second time that I've ever played it. I'm basically hanging on to those farther ships because they give us that power up, and you might notice that we got the invulnerability. That should be a green shield that we managed to pick up. I would definitely say that in the screenshots and playing this for real, it's slightly more entertaining than watching this in the video, because it's madness and mayhem and you have to make it up as you go along. And I think the DNA involved is a bit of a waste of time, because you don't really need those smart bombs. You really want to get the power-ups sorted out, and I think you can only get maybe 2 of them on every level. Of course, once the DNA pods are empty, you can't get any more, so once you take those to the pads, that's it. So I'm not quite sure how many are on the level. You can see there are only maybe 2 or 3 left on this particular level. Those DNA pods, the green dots, and we have lots of pink dots all being surrounded. So let's pile in there and let's try to get the human, which isn't easy. And that's a recipe for disaster in this game. As soon as you go out there looking for humans or survivors or whatever they might be, that's a recipe for a disaster. But you can see we found some, we've got killed, we've still got the human, we've still got the power-ups, and we're still in the same place on that level. So you can see all those pads, unfortunately they can only carry one thing at a time. So I think that's it, that's another human, that's 3 that we've rescued, and I'm not quite sure how many we need. Maybe it's 1 extra for every level, but usually maybe 5 or 6 humans will complete that quota. It's unfortunate that we can only drag one thing behind us. This is not Captain Planet, we can't have lots of followers, but we can have things dragging behind us, and those things will take longer to develop. You can see that thing's taking ages, there it is, it will take longer to develop. If there are lots of enemies on the screen and the eyes and everything else is still functioning, the enemy will slow us down. But if there isn't much left remaining on the level, then that development will take a lesser time, and unfortunately we cannot seem to pick that up at the moment. For some reason it is difficult to get on those pads, and that's one of those infuriations that can put people off playing this game, if in fact the control ability and what you're supposed to do in the first place puts off everybody else. So that's why you won't see any reviews of this game and you won't see anybody holding this up as a magnificent Psygnosis game, because virtually nobody's played it, and that's why it only got a small crappy review and a very weedy score on the Lemon Amiga website. I'd say perhaps the end of the little bosses are getting a bit better at this stage. They are huge, they are not small sprites, they are maybe sprites made up of 4 segments all clustered together. I'm not quite sure how they pulled off these amazing tech demo stunts, and the latter half of Psygnosis' reign on the Amiga is definitely marked by a tech demo environment, going from, of course, the games that I've already mentioned, Shadow of the Beast and Anarchy, which was a Defender clone. They moved on through all these tech demo type games, but this one is playable, it is fun, but it's not one of those games that you'd want to play more than once, because even if you understand it, understand what you're supposed to do, you can go through this mad chaos. It's not as good as other games that we shall see, which have this 360-degree turning ability and the multi-screen scrolling aspect. But it certainly is, apart from being too easy and a bit too mind-blowing, it is certainly playable, and you can see just blowing up the heart, parts of the heart. You can see craters on the floor, we're blowing everything up. You can see following the brown craters everywhere, it means that we know where we've been, and so we can mark out our significance on that level, get that sunflower blown up. That's a magnificent graphic, and again, they didn't have to create such magnificent graphics on the Amiga. Scrolling is adequate, I don't know what it might be 20 frames per second or 15. It's not the best scrolling in the book, but it does give you all these colours, and it's smooth as you can see, even with this scrappy, with this old screen rip that I'm using at the moment. Maybe if this had come out on a console, it would be hailed as a cult classic masterpiece, and I've definitely played weirder games than this on the consoles, because this is really weird console fodder with all these weird shapes and colours and ships going on, and it reminds me of some kind of Japanese game that was released on an obscure MSX NEC variant machine. But no, it's on the Amiga and nobody's ever got it or played it, so if you have this in your collection, it's the big boxed original. One of the upsides is you can probably expect it to go for quite a few £100 these days, because you can't just find this and pick it off the shelf. It's a game that really shows off the Amiga's OCS, ECS extended colour palette, and smooth scrolling, and its weirdness. And of course, if this game had come out in 1985, it would have catapulted the Amiga to the top of everyone's to buy list. But we had to wait until Defender of the Crown came out, whenever that was, 86, 88, and all those other games that were supposed to really show the Amiga off for what it could do with all these tech demos. And it wasn't until 1990, when the Lotus games came along, that we actually got decent games, really showed off the Amiga, its full capability. And so there is a lot under the hood, and this on Amiga 1200 would be simplicity itself, because the Amiga 1200 can handle more colours, more bit planes going on, has a faster CPU, it has bigger and better memory, 32-bit architecture, and bitter processing. So whatever it's got it, and an Amiga 507 MHz machine with its VSLI custom chips was amazing, and so that was a big touting point of the Amiga when it was released. Said all that, so these worlds look pretty similar, and so once you're used to the game and used to the worlds, they'll be identical. You can see I've destroyed so many enemies on this level that I'm not even firing my weapons anymore, and against these Snatchers it doesn't work, it doesn't do anything anyway. So you can get to a point later on where you've destroyed everything, and you can really take your time and get around that level. And so there is some boredom, and there is some repetitiveness, some tedium, some frustration as well, trying to get onto these paths to try and get our energy back. Especially early on, when the enemies are really pouring out those generators, but not particularly right now. You can see more white dots than anything else. And so I can see a pink dot that is not being defended. Let's just dive in. Let's try and grab that human. He's up there. It's a party dance, and I'm sure they're naked and they're supposed to be fairies or something like that, but whatever it is, we've picked him up, and we've got another shield, which is great right at the end of that level, but unfortunately I don't think that shield lasts until we get to the end of the level boss, which would have been handy if we could have picked that shield up right before that boss. On to those scores, it's not unsurprising that the scores were fairly varied for this game, with the lowest score going to the ever reliable Amiga Joker, who gave this 28%. And so it didn't matter about the awesome sound, the awesome colours, the awesome graphics, the awesome fluidity, and the quite good fluid gameplay. They gave it 28%, complaining that there's no substance in the game, and it was one of those mind trips that you really didn't want to play more than once. The current score on the Lemon Amiga website is 58%, a very middle of the road score, and very few people have scored it, because those that have played it said that, well, you played it once, didn't understand it and switched it off, or they said it's a pretty nothing game where you just destroy things and get through eventually to the boss. Both those viewpoints are correct. The Amiga format score was 61%. Generation 4 awarded this 76%. Amiga Power gave it 76%. Stu Amiga gave this a massive 88% and an award. And Amiga Action also gave this 93% and an accolade award, which means this game gets an average score of 7 out of 10. We are down to 2 lives remaining, and I think this is level 9 of the 10 in this review. You can see in the top corner virtually nothing of the alien remains, and all we need to do is to get a few more arteries or a few more people back, and that's this level over. And on the very next level I was getting bored with it, so I just went on a shooting spree. So the very next level that you're going to see in this footage is me just going around shooting stuff, because I thought that this game had maybe infinite levels, and I thought if I play this any longer I'm just going to get bored. But little did I know that I was just short of completing this game, and as far as I know there are no long plays of this game, as well as virtually no reviews of it, given the complexity of how it looks on the surface. That's a heart attack, I'm not quite sure. Yes, we do keep that once we die. And the heart, well, that isn't the heart, I'm not quite sure what that is, but whatever it is, it's hard to destroy it. And the heart attack, you can see, well, we've got rid of all of the heart on the level, so that wasn't really needed after all. But those things will, to some extent, damage the aliens on the level, and so those things are not wasted. But you can see my lives being wasted. For some reason I had one life, still got one life, but you can see, let's cling on to that one life as we're going through the level 10 in this game. I collected 6 humanoids on that level, and look at this, level 9, we're surrounded by them. Before we even started, for some reason I'm struggling to pick those up, no idea why, I can't pick those up at the moment, there you go. So collision detection, rearing its ugly head at this particular point. So now we have to find one of those trays, one of those mats floating around. So land on a travelling mat, ping, there we go, and that's our first guy rescued. You can see there are lots of things floating around. Not that much to destroy, and at least as much as there was on level 1. We do get some variety in the levels, but this reminds us of other levels. It's great to see those great graphics. This was not hand-drawn, this was not public domain, but for my money I would have released this at $9.99 as a budget price, because even though all of the ingredients are there for it to be a classic, the vital ingredient, i.e. the longevity, is not there, because the substance of this game, once you know how to play it, isn't there either. You just fly around, bumping into things, going for different objectives, collecting things, shooting everything up, collecting those power-ups and using those to shoot everything up. And so maybe I'm making this game look easy, and on my practice run I did get blown up, because on the early levels you don't have that many lives, I don't think. So I don't think this gives you 9 lives, I think you have to build them up by completing the levels. So maybe some of the mystery of this game is solving how you're supposed to play it, and much of that was not included in the manual, because like I said, they got all of the colours wrong, and I think even the DNA colours wrong as well. But you can see collecting DNA and getting some weapons doesn't hide the fact that this game is not a classic shooter. So I'd probably give this game a full price, definitely 5 out of 10, or at $9.99 I'd give it maybe a 6.5. There's nothing wrong with it, but it doesn't mean to say it's a classic. So that's Amnios, and check out other games by Peter Lyon and Peter Leon, and Amnios or Amnios, and Psygnosis. Let's just end on the fact that you can call these things whatever you like, and if we were having a conversation, I'm calling him Jack Trammell and Jack Tramiel, it doesn't matter, I know exactly what you're talking about. So we are referring to this game, and so Amnios in my book, or Amnios, or however it's pronounced, gets a middle of the road score, and that's why it's not really remembered much on the Amiga. And if you want to check out more of this guy's games, definitely check out Eliminator with the great soundtrack. It's not, well, I'd say it's let down by 1 or 2 massively annoying flaws. If you can get 4 in that game and get the power-ups, then Eliminator is definitely one to look out for. But this is perhaps the best thing this guy came up with on the Amiga. You can see the potential there, and you can see why that these games weren't really utilised much on our beloved machine. And that Snatcher again, snatched the guy right out from under me. So that's my play of this game, and so if you've got any comments about this game, or if you know of any other multi-scrolling shooters like this, let me know. And so you can see, oh, looks like I had 3 warm-up goals, maybe even 4. 2019, and this was recorded in March, apparently, 2019. Wow. So maybe I had a warm go, wrote it off. Maybe I actually tried to record this footage a number of times, and March 15th, it looks like I've recorded the same footage twice in one day, because probably the recorder wasn't recording, and it's probably a good job that I've forgotten that I had to record this twice in one day, otherwise I would be very peed off recording this narration at this point. But it looks like I had to do that, and so let's hope that I never have to see this game or record it ever again. That was
Psygnosis Limited
presents copyright 1991.
Amnios.
Press O for the options, or you can completely ignore this game and play something better like
The Chaos Engine
or
Banshee.
So thank you for reviewing this game guide and review. Thank you.